Hey there, fellow LARPers, and welcome back to the Adventures Dispatch, where we sort through what's opening, what's filling, what's newly moving, and what might actually deserve a place on your calendar. This week has a nice mix, some strong North American ticket movement, a few generally useful UK and Germany updates, and a couple of immersive projects that feel worth watching rather than just vaguely admiring from afar. So, let's get with it. Here's the headline news. In Racine, Wisconsin, Thornbridge Academy looks like a strong pickup for players who want their LARPing a little bit more haunted, romantic, and academically cursed. The official Journeys and Tales description calls it a Nordic-style Gothic academia LARP for 75 players, centered on transformation, grief, power, and romance. But sign-ups will close on March 22nd, so you better get to it. This event is less in the weekend skirmish lane and more in that emotional, supernatural, relationship-forward space that should appeal to anyone who hears Mysterious Academy with Secrets and immediately starts mentally packing velvet, journals, and bad decisions. But if it interests you, the time is now to apply. For Tri-State Fantasy players, LAIRE has its March 2026 weekend event set. LAIRE is a weekend fantasy campaign LARP. It's described as spending one weekend a month in the capital city of Avalon, where players take part in a living story with magic, crafting, merchants, and exploration in the world of Mythodea. The game is open for players 16+ and includes new player training, so it reads as an ongoing, beginner-accessible fantasy adventure community campaign rather than a one-shot or a parlor game. It's set for March 20th through 22nd, which is exactly the kind of concrete entry point that matters when people are trying to decide whether this is the month they finally stop saying, "I should try a LARP sometime." Over in Misthaven, Chronicles of Ashenfall has a very practical update rather than a flashy one. Its 2026 spring season has been live since January 1st, with event weekends set for March 27th through 29th and May 15th through 17th. And the site also confirms the fall season tickets begin sales June 1st. That makes this a good planning item for players who want a campaign-style fantasy game with a concrete date and a known buy window. Out in the Mojave, Neotropolis is still one of the clearest big-ticket cyberpunk plays on the board right now. The fully immersive Desert Festival returns April 29th through May 3rd, 2026 in California's Mojave Desert, and the organizers' official site says tickets are now on sale, with Tier 3 pricing currently listed after the earlier tiers rolled over. For anyone in the audience who likes fictional play, costume world building, and the festival plus roleplay plus mission structure lane, this is still one of the most distinctive North American options in the spring. In New Jersey, The World Beyond the Fall has its 2026 event calendar posted for Amity Acres Day Camp in Barnegat, with upcoming weekends listed for May 15th through 17th, July 17th through 19th, September 4th through 6th, and November 6th through 8th, after its early year runs. That is less a buy this second headline and more a very useful planning signal for post-apocalyptic players in the Mid-Atlantic who need to budget travel, gear, and vacation time before the year gets away from them. And for people who want a bigger destination-style fantasy trip later in the year, the Brandywine Festival, the licensed Middle-earth Adventures event near Harrodsburg, Kentucky, is now promoting its October 1st through 4th, 2026 run, with fewer than 312 tickets remaining on the official page at this point. And that makes this one less a someday and more a start making decisions now moment, especially for viewers who enjoy comfort-forward festival, roleplay, music, costuming, and the gentler social side of immersion. In Wisconsin, This Man Belongs to Me is a new 2-day freeform LARP coming to the DeKoven Center in Racine from October 15th through 18th, and it's one of those projects that immediately tells you what kind of emotional lane it wants to live in. Set in 1934, just as the Hays Code closes in on Hollywood, it follows the cast and crew of a scandal-prone film on the night their train breaks down, trapping them in a small town with their secrets, their ambitions, and the people most likely to expose both. The game is being run through Lavender House, and after its early bird application period ended March 6th, it has now moved into general admission sales. So for players who like queer historical drama, relationship play, and a lot of pressure cooker intimacy, this is a headline worth keeping an eye on. In Finland, the Illyrian Tales crowdfunding campaign for Odysseus is now live, and the organizers say it runs through April 16th. This is the campaign meant to fund the first 10 runs of the revived sci-fi LARP and help create a permanent spaceship set, with Illyrian's own material saying that if it succeeds, the first new runs are planned for autumn 2026 in Finland, and it will run throughout early next year. If it fails, they are saying it will never be run again. So this has moved well beyond maybe someday territory. It is now an active, live support window for one of the most talked about blockbuster-style LARP returns on the European scene. So if you are at all interested, get to the Indiegogo site and give them your pledge now. In the UK, Empire continues to be one of the biggest practical planning stories for fantasy campaign players. The official booking page lists 2026 Winter Solstice for April 24th through 26th, Spring Equinox for June 12th through 14th, Summer Solstice for July 24th through 26th, and Autumn Equinox for September 11th through 13th, with ticket prices and booking deadlines already posted. For anyone trying to plan a major UK campaign commitment, this is exactly the sort of calendar first, logistics second, costume panic later information that matters. Over in Germany, Chronicles of Mythodea Nocturnal Hunters is set for April 30th through May 3rd, 2026, and the official page confirms tickets are on sale. It also spells out the new location, notes that the game supports German and English, and lists ticket batches and early arrival options, which makes this a genuinely actionable pickup for international players who want a large-scale European fantasy adventure with logistics already visible. In the UK, Herofest LARP has a solid season structure posted for Huntley Wood and Cheadle's Stoke-on-Trent, with the Baleful Eye running May 8th through 10th, the Interplanar Fair on July 10th through 12th, and Time of Reckoning on September 4th through 6th. The site also shows that the season bundle is sold out, while individual event tickets and discounted new player tickets, at least for July and September, are still listed. Over in Poland, Whirls of Pontar is one of the more distinctive Witcher World LARPs on the board right now. And the official LARP Venture pages show the bilingual run is set for September 3rd through 6th, 2026 at Fantasy Village in Katowice, Poland. I tried. And tickets are currently on sale. The game is framed as a story about borders, occupation, and everyday life under pressure in the world of The Witcher 3, with both English and Polish play supported and room for a wide range of character intensity. So viewers who like blockbuster atmosphere but want something a little bit more village scale, socially tangled, and beginner friendly rather than a pure combat fantasy, this is a very strong global item. In New York, Artec House, NYC, premiered Blooming Wonders, a celebration of spring on March 12th. So tickets are now live. The exhibition leans into interactive floral dreamscapes, projection work, and multi-sensory installations. So for Dispatch viewers who cross-shop between LARP, immersive art, and I just want to walk through something really beautiful and slightly unreal, this is a timely one. Also in New York, A Brooklyn Dream has its next performance on March 28, 2026 at the Brooklyn Pop, and the official page describes it as an immersive play blending theater, film, music, and installation. It also notes that the project is celebrating its first anniversary after more than a dozen sold-out shows. So this feels like a useful pick for viewers who like immersive work with a more intimate story and memory-driven theatrical approach rather than pure spectacle. Out in Los Angeles, Meow Wolf is still in pre-opening mode, but there's been real movement. The company's official site says Meow Wolf Los Angeles is coming in 2026, and it published a fresh March 3rd through 4th sneak peek showing new artwork and build progress in the project. That is not a ticket drop yet, but it is a meaningful status update for anyone tracking major immersive openings and wondering whether the LA location of Meow Wolf is still quietly advancing toward reality. So the quick rundown this week. Buy now or decide soon if you're eyeing Thornbridge Academy, LAIRE, Ashenfall, Neotropolis, Chronicles of Mythodea, Herofest, Whirls of Pontar, or Empire, or if you want to back Odysseus. And you do want to back Odysseus. Start making longer range plans, which may also include applying now, if Brandywine, This Man Belongs to Me, or Beyond the Fall feel like your lane. And on the immersive side, Blooming Wonders and A Brooklyn Dream are the two most immediate date-specific picks, while Meow Wolf Los Angeles is still one to track rather than the book. Okay, feature time. So this past weekend I met somebody and I was talking about the channel here and they were like, God, I've always wanted to do a LARP, but where would I even start? And I started to think that I suspect a lot of people know this thought or feeling very, very well. You find a LARP online, the photos are gorgeous, the costumes are incredible, the setting, it's exactly your kind of thing. Fantasy, sci-fi, gothic mystery, post-apocalypse, magical school, political intrigue, whatever it is. Your brain lights up immediately. But then about 6 seconds later, it hits you. Okay, what's my first step? For a lot of people, the problem is not that LARP looks unappealing, it's just the opposite. It looks so interesting and so specific that it can feel like everybody else already knows the language except for you. So you see words like campaign game, one-shot, freeform, buffer, faction, workshop, casting, immersion level, off-game, in-game, safety mechanics, on and on. And if you're new, it can all start to feel a little less come and play with us and a little bit more like welcome to a hobby where everybody apparently has a manual except for you. So if you've ever thought, I'd love to try this, but I generally do not know how to start, this feature is for you. Because the beginner problem is not that LARP is too complicated, it's that nobody hands you a map. And the good news is you don't need to understand everything. You just need to understand a few things well enough to make a good first choice. So the first thing I would say is this. Do not start by asking, okay, what's the best LARP? I mean, that sounds logical, but for beginners, it's usually the wrong question because the best LARP for one person might not be the best for another. It might, in fact, be a miserable choice for somebody else. So one player wants battlefield combat, mud, tents, and 1,000 people yelling in armor. However, another wants candlelight, secrets, romance, and emotionally devastating conversations in velvet sleeves. Another wants a funny, low-pressure tavern game where they can show up in comfortable booths, meet people, and see if they even like being in character for a full weekend. These are all completely different first experiences, and none of them is automatically better. They're just different. So the real question is not what's the best LARP, it's what kind of experience am I actually looking for? That's where you begin. Do you want action? Do you want social intrigue? Do you want horror? Do you want something soft and welcoming? Do you want something big and spectacular? Do you want something intimate and story-heavy? Do you want to hit people over the head with foam swords? Do you not want to start hitting people over the head with foam swords? All of these are choices that you need to make. Because once you know the shape of the feeling you're chasing, suddenly the hobby becomes much more accessible. And that matters because one of the biggest mistakes beginners make is assuming that all LARPs are basically the same thing but with different costumes. Well, they're not. A weekend fantasy campaign in the woods is not the same experience as a one-night parlor LARP in formal wear. A Nordic-inspired freeform game is not the same experience as a boffer campaign. A blockbuster-style immersive event is not the same experience as a chapter-based community game. And a game that looks gorgeous in still photos may or may not be the right emotional, physical, or logistical fit for you. Which brings me to the next important thing. Your first LARP should not be the coolest one. It should be the one with the clearest on-ramp. That, I think, is one of the most useful truths a beginner can hear. Because sometimes people see the most cinematic, intimidating, impossible-looking event imaginable and think, well, that must be the one I should do if I'm serious. Well, no, not necessarily. For a first-time LARP, what you want is clarity. You want a game where you can tell what it is, how it works, what kind of role play it expects, what you need to bring, how beginner-friendly it is, and what support exists if you are nervous, confused, or overwhelmed. A game with beautiful photos and terrible onboarding is not beginner-friendly. A game with slightly less glamorous marketing, but a very clear welcome page, accessible organizers, helpful player culture, and easy entry expectations, well, that may be a much better fit for a first step. And honestly, that's true in a lot of hobbies. Your first experience does not need to impress the internet. It needs to help you say, oh, I get it now. I can do this. That's the goal. Now, once you have a rough sense of what kind of experience you want, the next skill is learning how to read a LARP listing, because that's where a lot of beginners freeze. They open a website and immediately get hit with lore, factions, fiction, costume galleries, ticket types, and maybe 20 pages of world building before they can answer the very basic question of, am I sleeping in a cabin or on the ground? So here's what I think every beginner should look at first. Not the lore, not the timeline of the Third Succession War, not the royal family tree. Start with these. What kind of game is this? Combat heavy? Mostly social? Mystery focused? Horror? Romance? Politics? Survival? Festival? Whatever. How long is it? A one-shot? A day game? A full weekend? An ongoing campaign? Is it beginner friendly? And not in a vague all are welcome way. I mean, do they actually explain things? Do they have newbie support? Do they help with character creation? Do they tell you what the minimum costume standard really is? What are the living conditions? Cabins, dorms, hotel, camping, shared bunks, outdoor latrines? Because let me tell you, your opinion on a game can be very strongly influenced by whether you're cold, wet, sleep-deprived, and regretting your life choices at 3 in the morning. What's the cost, really? Not just the ticket, what else? Food, travel, costuming, bedding, props, faction fees, weapon requirements, and what is the actual role play expectations? Are you in character all weekend? Are there workshops? Are there off-game breaks? Is it beginner accessible? Is it emotionally intense? Can you ease in gently, or are you expected to arrive fully formed like a Shakespearean hurricane? Those things are the ones that matter the most. And I really want to underline something here because I think it scares people unnecessarily. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need the perfect costume. You don't need the perfect accent. You don't need 20 years of improv experience. You don't need handcrafted boots and a tragic backstory with 6 embedded plot hooks and 3 layers of symbolic trauma. You need enough to participate. That's a very different thing. Now, yes, there are absolutely games with high visual standards, genre expectations, or specific wardrobe needs. That's very real. But many beginners make the mistake of assuming that the most polished photos on a website represent the minimum required bar for attendance. Very often they don't. Very often, those photos represent the most experienced, most invested, most photogenic people there. And that's not the same thing as what do I need to show up and have a good time? Those are very different questions. So if you're new, don't ask, could I look as good as the best dressed person in the gallery? Ask, what is the actual minimum standard for me to participate respectfully and comfortably? The question will save you time, money, and a lot of unnecessary spiraling. And this is where asking the organizers questions becomes incredibly important. A healthy beginner-friendly game should be able to answer clear, practical questions without making you feel foolish for asking them. Things like, is this a good first LARP? What does a beginner usually need to bring? How much costume is enough? How much combat is there? How much improvisation is expected? What safety tools do you use? What are the sleeping arrangements? Do you have a new player guide? Those are excellent questions. Not annoying questions, not embarrassing questions, excellent questions. And the way organizers answer them tells you something, not just about the game, but about the culture. Because one of the quietest but most important parts of choosing your first LARP is not just finding a cool setting, it's about finding a game that wants you to succeed. A game that wants new people to enter the hobby well, a game that knows beginners exist, a game that explains itself, a game that does not confuse mystery with confusion. Because there's a difference between a world being immersive and a website being unhelpful. And if something is so difficult to decode that you can't tell what you're signing up for, that may not be a failure on your part. That may just be bad onboarding. So if you're stuck, I would suggest this very simple beginner roadmap. First, pick a genre or feeling. Second, find a game that seems to support beginners clearly. Third, read for logistics before lore. Fourth, ask direct questions. And fifth, choose a first experience that feels exciting, but also understandable. The last part matters so much, because I think that people sometimes assume that if they're still nervous, that means they're not ready. No, nervous is normal. In fact, sometimes it's part of the excitement of the whole LARP. The beginning, that first day, nothing can beat that feeling. So the goal is, I'm nervous, but I understand what I'm walking into. I also think that it's worth saying that your first LARP does not need to be your forever LARP. This is not a marriage proposal, it's an experiment. You're not choosing the one true game that will define your destiny for all time. You're trying something out, learning something, testing what kind of roleplay, structure, community, and intensity level actually works for you. And maybe you discover you love campaign fantasy. And maybe you discover you actually want smaller, more intimate one-shots. Maybe you discover you love immersive costuming but hate sleeping outdoors. Maybe you discover that you want political roleplay and not combat at all. Maybe you discover you love the hobby but not the first format you tried. All of that is useful and all of it counts. The first LARP does not have to be perfect to be successful. It just has to teach you something real. And if I could leave beginners with one final thought, it's probably this. Confusion is not proof that you're bad at this. It's not proof that you do not belong. It's not proof that LARP is for other people. Very often, confusion just means that the hobby has done a mediocre job at explaining itself. That's all. You don't need to become perfect LARPer before you begin. You don't need to arrive fully initiated. You do not need to earn the right to be curious. You begin the same way most people begin anything worthwhile. Interested, uncertain, a little intimidated, and hoping the door is real. And the right first LARP, not the flashiest one, not the most prestigious one, not the most elaborate one, the right first LARP is the one that makes it easier for you to say yes. So if you've always been interested, but you just do not know where to start there. Not with perfection, not with expertise, not with the pressure to immediately become a LARPer, just with one good question. What kind of experience am I looking for? Because once you can answer that, you're no longer standing outside the hobby. You're already on your way in. Well, that's the state of play for this week. Some things to see to immediately if you're interested, some near-term bookings, and some later year positioning. As always, the goal here is not to make you panic book your life into chaos. It is to help you notice what is real, what is moving, and what might generally fit into the kind of story that you want to step into. I'll throw up on the screen an event calendar so you can start to make some decisions. And remember, stop chasing FOMO. Chase serenity. Now onward into your story.